Leonard Hikaumba, former president of the Civil Servants and Allied Workers Union of Zambia. Thank you so much for joining me on this edition of This Day.
Thank you very much.
Let's start first of all with your understanding, your assessment. With so many years of experience working with the civil service, how do you define the ideal relationship between public service and politics in a democracy like Zambia?
Okay. Maybe before I go to that one, I would like us to understand the public service. Who is civil servant? Who is a public officer? Is it one and the same thing? Yeah, so when we talk about the public service, we are talking about mainly the government agencies, the state inclusive, that employ workers to do or carry out government programs, implement government policies. These are civil servants. In addition, we have other public service employees who include now those we may call constitutional office holders and other public officers, like the president is a public officer, the vice president and ministers and others. So because they are paid from the consolidated fund of government. So whereas the civil service, we are really talking about those who are employed to do government work. That is the difference. So not all public officers are civil servants, but all civil servants are public officers. Yeah, so it means the civil service is a subset of the entire public service. Now, when you talk about what is the relationship, of course, the relationship, the way I understand it, is as follows. One, the government workers, the employees, are not supposed to actively participate in politics, but they are there to implement government programs. And we know that a government is usually formed by a political party. For instance, we've had 4 political parties now forming government. We had UNIP. They had their own manifesto, their policies. So it was government workers who had to implement what the party in power wanted. Then came the MMD. They also came with their own policies and whatever programs that they had. So the civil servants had to implement that. So we can see that whereas political parties may change, but the civil service remains the same. And so the requirement is that government workers need to work with the government of the day. So whichever government that is in power, the civil servants or the government employees need to work with that government because they have to implement the policies and programs of that party that is in power at that particular moment. So civil servants are supposed to be neutral. So they cannot, for instance, stand up and say, no, us, we wanted this party to be in power. Therefore, we are not going to implement the programs for this party that has come into power. No, they are politically neutral. This is what they are supposed to be, and just work with the government that is in power at that time.
This isn't the ideal situation, what you've just described.
Yeah.
But is this a true reflection of what is happening within the civil service in Zambia?
Well, I think what is happening is not completely as I have described. And I think when the rules and regulations were being put in place, there was anticipation that some may deviate from this kind of arrangement. So we have provisions, for instance, in the Constitution, where if one wants to participate in politics as a public officer or as a civil servant, then they have to resign if they are still working. You know, we have the civil service, you know, regulations, which also give us, you know, the rules which are supposed to be followed by civil servants as they work. Are they supposed to participate in campaigns, for instance? Are they supposed? No, all these are not allowed on their part. Yeah, but we still find that, and I'm picking it up from far back, you know, maybe I will leave the UNIP time because we only had one political party. Then we come to the time we reintroduced multipartism in 1991. We could see that some civil servants began, you know, being politically inclined. Those who didn't want UNIP, for instance, they started, you know, siding with the MMD that time because they were advocating for change, despite the requirement that they be neutral. And picking it up from there, we still see those government, those who were pro-government or pro-party in power, and others pro-opposition. Now, it was safer for those who were supporting the party in power because essentially people who are supposed to take action against whoever abrogates the rules are those who are in power. So if there's someone who is supporting them and is inclined towards them, they would simply pay a blind eye to whatever that person is doing. But they will always take very quick action against those who are perceived to be working against them, working with the opposition. Yeah, and over the years we've seen situations where people have suffered, especially civil servants, if they discover or there's you know, something to indicate that they are sympathizing with the opposition. Either they will be transferred from wherever they are to maybe very remote places. Maybe they will not be promoted. Their juniors will be promoted, surpassing them along the way. You know, all that kind of thing. Others were even being retired in the national interest, you know, all in the name of trying to deal with those who were perceived to be partisan in their activities as civil servants. And you know, like this issue of retirement in national interest, when someone is being retired in national interest, it simply means that this person has not yet reached retirement age and that this person still holds a position that is still relevant in the establishment of the government structure. And this person is required to perform another function which is outside the public service. So they may retire this person in national interest in order to appoint them to take up another position elsewhere. Or it might be restructuring. Maybe the positions are no longer necessary, and then due to restructuring, so they may be retired in national interest. So those are the areas. But we've seen situations where I'm a holder of a position, I'm retired in national interest, I'm not being taken anywhere for redeployment. Then how have I been appointed in national interest? You see? So there are all these problems that we have seen. So to answer your question, yes, things have not really gone as they are supposed to be. There have been those who have been victimized for perceptions, real or sometimes false, that they are engaged in politics or supporting a certain political establishment, and others who are lucky because they are perceived to be supporting those in authority, they may not be touched. We've seen this over the years, during MMD time, during PF time. Some are also saying it's still happening up to now. So although in terms of the other forms of punishment, we have not really seen any happening now. For instance, no one has, very few claim to have been retired in national interest, like it was the case before.
Would you say that the civil service, in its relationship with politics, has been turned into a reward system for people who have long supported a political party while it's in opposition, and then when they form government, they are rewarded by being given jobs in the civil service?
Well, yeah, when I look back, and this also dates back from even the UNIP time, during MMD, during PF, even now, you know, those who are perceived to be strongly in support, when appointments are being made, usually these are the people who are given consideration. You know, there are various positions for which people can be appointed. You know, we have, you know, permanent secretaries, we have district commissioners now, we have people in the diplomatic service. So if you look back, from MMD, those who were appointed were mostly those perceived to be strongly supporting the MMD. During PF, it was the same thing. Even now, although there are certain sentiments where some people, because of what has happened in the past, they will identify certain people and say, look, that person was actually campaigning against you. Now they will be pointing to the president that, you know, this one was campaigning against you. But why haven't you appointed someone who supported you other than this person? You know, that mentality is still with us. Yeah, but I think when I was in the union, for instance, especially from 1995, when I was heading the Civil Servants and Allied Workers Union up to 2010, our advocacy that time was that even for positions like district commissioners, permanent secretaries, our advocacy that time was that these jobs should be left to civil servants, those who have grown through the public service structures, because they understand how the public service operates, and it motivates them if they are appointed to those high positions through the ranks of the public service. You know, it is it demotivates if they've done so much, and then for these prestigious positions, then you start receiving people from outside the public service who may not really understand how the public service operates. That was the contention. And the other thing, looking at my experience during that time, 1995 to 2010, we had these people who, because they were actively involved in politics out there, and then they were appointed into the public service, then they would now bring politics into the public service. How were they bring politics? You'd find if this person is appointed as a DC or as a permanent secretary, their fellow party cadres will start coming to the office. They want to be given priority. Even when they find other people, they want to be attended first. They will go solicit for transport, for instance, government transport, even when they want to perform a party activity, purely party activity. So these are the challenges sometimes that come in. We have these regulations, like I have said, which, are supposed to guide those appointed in the public service, that they should not do this, they should not do that. But it's a problem because of where these people are coming from. During campaigns, for instance, we used to see these DCs, they would get these government vehicles, maybe even remove the GRZ number plates, put something else, and then they go and even participate in campaigns themselves, as government employees, which was wrong. Yeah, but I hope this time, I hope it's not happening, because the reason for for putting those regulations which do not allow public officers from engaging in politics is to restrict and protect the use of government resources, because these resources are meant for development, they are meant for national programs, so they are not meant to promote a party. That's why those regulations were put in place. And that's why the operatives, that is the officers, are not allowed to use government resources, fuel, vehicles or whatever, to promote a party, whether in opposition or in government, for that matter. They are not allowed. So when they are found to violate these provisions, then the public service disciplinary procedures are set in motion. So depending on the severity of the problem, either someone can just be reprimanded, they can be demoted, or they can be suspended, or if it borders on, for instance, misuse of finances, they may even be prosecuted. It becomes a criminal offense. Yeah, so my plea to those appointed to positions in the public service as civil servants, they are supposed to adhere to these provisions. It's for the good of our democracy. It's good for their personal, development. Because of what use is it for you to steal money because you want to go and use it or donate it to a political party, and then there is an audit query against you which may actually send you to prison.
When you say all of this, where do you think the line then gets crossed between loyalty to the government but also loyalty to the country, to the people of this country?
Yeah, I think when people, because sometimes what motivates those in the civil service or public offices is to start going beyond their mandate. It's where they want to show those who are in authority that they are actually with them. And if there are appointments to be made, these are the ones to be given consideration. So it's like they want to really be seen to be in full support. Yeah, but I think the full support that you can give a government is where you diligently and professionally carry out your duties. Because at the end of the day, when you do government work correctly, timely, professionally, people are going to appreciate. They will be saying, oh, this government is doing well. Through you, the professionals who are doing the work. But if you're going to divert money, maybe this money is meant for a road, and this money is meant for a clinic or a school, and then you take that for the campaign, it means you are depriving that activity of funding, which is supposed to promote the image of government. For instance, if money is meant for a school and all that money is used for that purpose, then a nice school is going to be seen and people will appreciate. If it's a clinic and all the money allocated to it is used on its establishment, then people are going to appreciate. Now, in your own wisdom, you remove that money and take it away and say, no, I want to support this campaign. That clinic will not be completed. That school will not be completed. That road will not be completed. And at the end of the day, people will be saying, look, this government is failing to complete projects. But it's because of you, as the person in charge, who has diverted resources from those projects to something which was not meant to be funded from that allocation. So it means you are doing a disservice. So much as you know, it's not easy to completely remove that personal inclination which is internally inbuilt. Yeah, because even if you say civil servants are supposed to be politically neutral, yeah, in actions and whatever, yes, but deep down, each one has got their own, preferences.
I mean, they do vote after all.
Yes, so, but those preferences should not dictate how we should operate as civil servants. So this is a self-discipline, this is self-examination where you should always ask yourself, especially for those who are in positions of high responsibility, what I'm doing, is it in line with the regulations? Is it in line with the job description that I have? So those are things that you should always bear in mind, so that your personal inclinations should not override what you're supposed to do professionally as an employee.
Do you think that civil servants, with the structure that we've just described here, permanent secretaries being appointed outside of the civil service, a lot of times politically inclined, do you think with this structure, civil servants are free to discharge their duties without political pressure?
Well, they are supposed to discharge their duties without political pressure, and maybe it's time that everyone is undergoes orientation. I've seen and I've heard situations where some newly appointed, government officials, especially permanent secretaries and others, they are given an orientation on how the public service operates. What is it that they can do? What is it that they cannot do? Where they would seek, authority from elsewhere, just the line of command, everything. They are oriented. And I think this orientation is very good, and it should be extended to maybe all the appointees, especially those who are coming from outside the public service. And for that matter, maybe some refresher courses should be done so that people adhere to what they are supposed to do. So we shouldn't have a situation where the overriding consideration is politics. That if I don't do this, I'll be seen not to be supporting those in office. And when there is change of government, if you were supporting those who were in office before, as a matter of principle, as a civil servant, like I've said, you're supposed to work with the government of the day. So forget about the other people who have gone. Now there's someone else. And you are expected, as a matter of rule, to work with those who are now in office. So you don't have to frustrate, because the opposite of those who want to promote, then there are those who might be against, and they will be doing certain things deliberately so that the government can be discredited. They will not perform the duties as they are supposed to, so that at the end of the day, people will be saying, look, this government has failed. So again, that is not good. If there's advocates that such a person be removed from their position, again, they'll start crying foul and say, look, I'm being persecuted because of my political stance. Having been a civil servant myself, I've encountered both, those who act because they want to see the government being discredited, and then there are those who act because they want to see the government being praised and promoted. And then there are those who are just, politically neutral. Theirs is just to work and do that. They do the work professionally. So these extreme ends, these are the ones who need to be brought into line, so that we do not have those who are overzealous. They want to do everything to be seen, to support the party in power. And then there are these who do things deliberately wrong and maybe not do work accordingly, so that the party in power is seen to be not doing the right thing. So at the end of the day, both sides are wasting time and resources that are meant to save the people of the country.
How would you say unions like the civil servants and allied workers are key to restoring integrity within the civil service?
Yeah, it's true. Like I've indicated, when you, as a union, one of the things that a union does is to provide workers' education to their members. And during such interactions with the members, of course, you can educate them that as civil servants, the do's and don'ts are the following. In terms of political involvement, again, as a union, you can educate your members and say, look, as civil servants, we are not supposed to do A, B, C, D in terms of politics. What we are supposed to do are the following. So you give guidance, you create awareness, you know. And the goodness also is that the public service is not working in isolation, or let me say the public service unions are not working in isolation of others. Internationally, there is a global federation called Public Service International. So all unions that are working in the public service have come together under this Public Service International so that they share experiences and so that they come up with the suggestions on how they can first and foremost provide quality public services. Why? Because usually people complain about the quality of services provided by the public sector. If you compare, clinics or health facilities, some people would rather want to go to a private hospital because if they go to a government hospital, the service might not be as good as they would get in a private hospital. So the Public Service International, acting with the local unions, is advocating that let's provide quality services so that it won't, those in authority will have no reason to want to reduce the public service. Let us also convince the public so that they can be advocates or spokespersons for the public service, and they can sympathize with the public sector unions and say, no, these are working, we need them. Even when workers are crying for a salary increment, the people will say, yes, it's justified. They will even put pressure on government and say, please give them a reasonable salary increment because we are seeing the good services that they are providing. So it's promoting, professionalism, promoting a conduct that, elevates the public service, fight against vices that discredit the public sector, like, corruption and all these other things, theft, misallocation of resources. The union can play a great role because it's their members who are doing most of this work. And they can do quite a lot in educating their members what they are supposed to do in order to have a public service that gives people, satisfaction and hope.
In conclusion, what are some of the practical steps that government can take, to restore public confidence in the public service and credibility?
Well, I think we should see leadership that does not reward patronage, for instance. Those who want to be seen to be really the ones close at the expense of others. Let's not reward such kind of behavior. And I'm glad that the role of NIPA is being recognized to educate, because the public service is driven by the permanent secretaries. They are the ones in charge in the ministries. So if those know what is supposed to be done, then we expect that they will give proper guidance as to what should be done. But it's also a plea to appointing authorities that if there are people to be appointed from outside the public service, well, that is welcome. But identify those who are within to, motivate those who are within the system already, who have stayed there despite certain challenges, because they remain there aspiring for these same positions. So it's also good to give them that kind of consideration. Yeah, because eventually you have people who have worked through the system, who understand, because if you have a district commissioner, a permanent secretary who has worked through these ranks and of government structures, they will be able to understand what really happens at various levels. They will have, maybe they might have worked elsewhere. They will know the challenges that are really there in carrying out programs successfully in the public service. And like someone who just comes to occupy these top positions from elsewhere, we're not saying they are not good. They can also perform quite well. But there's need, for those who are coming from outside, let them create, a good rapport with the people they find, so that they are able to learn how the public service operates. Unlike where they come and then they want to show that, okay, they are from somewhere, they know what is supposed to be done, then there will be that hostility, and those hostilities make it very difficult for these government ministries to operate efficiently.
Thank you so much, Mr. Leonard Hikaumba, for joining us on this issue.
Thank you very much.